who's really in control, the human or the machine? Welcome back to XTrawAI, the podcast where we dig deep and extract the raw conversations shaping the future of artificial intelligence. I'm your host, Raghu Banda, and today we're about to explore a fascinating frontier, Agentic AI. AI that doesn't just respond, but acts with purpose, autonomy, and intelligence. And there's no better guest to help us unpack this than Jesse Anglen, the CEO and co-founder of Rapid Innovation, a powerhouse in Web3, blockchain, and AI development. Jesse is a serial entrepreneur with over 2 decades of experience helping companies transform with next-gen technologies. And now he's pioneering the space where agentic systems are changing the very nature of decision-making and human agency. In this episode, we'll discuss how these autonomous AI systems are already reshaping industries, how they'll challenge the way businesses operate, and most importantly, how we as humans can stay in the driver's seat. So if you've ever wondered how far AI autonomy can go and what that means for enterprises and all of us, stick around. Let's dive in.
All right, so let's get going. We are back on our XTrawAI podcast, and today we are going to talk with Mr. Jesse Anglen. And today the topic is around agentic AI, or redefining the future of human agency. Jesse, I hope I've said your name right. If not, let me know.
No, you did just fine. Jesse Anglen. It's an easy name. Most everyone says Angelin or some other thing like that. You did better than most.
Yep. So let's get going. So I generally kick off the things in this podcast like asking the guest about a bit of their professional journey or the personal journey about how you got into this AI world. I know long before some of us have been in this AI world, long before AI became cool. I know You've been there around. So any professional or a personal backdrop that you would like to share?
Yeah. So I'll tell you the short version of my story. And kind of why I became interested in AI and why I would say now that moved from being very interested or having it be kind of a hobby focus to a passion that I have now. But just to give a little background on me, I was one of those kids that hated school. I hated education, I hated all that stuff. Like sitting still, trying to learn things was just not my jam. And so I made an agreement with my mother that I could work ahead in school, and ended up graduating high school when I was 14. Got a full-time job, and even as a kid, right, as a 15, 16-year-old, one of the things I realized when I got into the workforce is that I always felt like people just didn't run things very well. Like there was always a better way to do stuff, and I liked optimizing things. And so when I was 17, I started my own company. My dad was a carpenter growing up, and so my first entrepreneurial endeavor was to actually start a a house building company at 17, and did that for a while. Realized that, man, there's a certain level that you just can't go. There's not a lot of leverage in the construction industry, and so then I decided I would go and sell houses. And I got into real estate, and that's where I discovered software development and what you could do when you start leveraging software to start doing things that human beings normally did. And this would have been in like 2009, and fell in love with software development. Just fell in love with the process of doing it. Met some really, really amazing people. Built some really, really cool stuff. From there, I would say that's where I first became really, really enamored in my real estate career, and through that software development, kind of my first exposure to that. That's where I became enamored with the idea of AI, and it actually came about in a really interesting way. I was sending out marketing materials to a bunch of people, and I needed to figure out how to create a letters that I could send out to people that looked handwritten. And it was that simple. I needed a solution to send out handwritten letters that looked actually handwritten. And I found a lot of handwritten fonts, but
Right.
none of them really worked very well. Like you could always tell that they were printed. And I wanted something that was indistinguishable from my handwriting.
Mm-hmm.
And so the very first thing I ever did in the AI space was I created a little handwriting algorithm that replaced my handwriting, and I could
Beautiful.
basically just type out what I wanted, what I wanted the letter to say, do a mail merge through Excel, and print out a bunch of what looked like handwritten letters and handwritten envelopes, and was doing marketing. And so that was my first introduction into uh, not even really generative AI. I think,
Right.
I mean, I think ultimately I used a GAN to train it back then, which probably wasn't even the best way to do it. I was just playing around, just trying to figure out what to do and how to do it. Um, and so did that. Then on the professional career side of things, I got into the blockchain space in 2011.
Mm.
I started building applications around the Bitcoin blockchain, and eventually met up with Vitalik and Gavin as they were building out Ethereum, and
Mm.
helped them put together the smart contract language. I thought that smart contracts and decentralized technology, decentralized applications were going to be amazing. I still think that they definitely have their use case for some things, but I kind of burnt the ships and went all in with that.
Mm-hmm.
Started building out a bunch of decentralized applications, and still just satiating my curiosity on the AI side of things, and eventually decided to build Rapid Innovation, which ultimately is a company that's purpose is to help people who are trying to innovate.
Mm-hmm.
So I find myself working with a lot of startups, but also established companies that are just they're old and stale, and they want to actually innovate with what they're doing. And so we did that in the blockchain space for quite some time. And then 3, maybe 4 years ago, I started getting very, very, very interested in AI. When I read "Attention is All You Need," when
Right.
Google put that paper out, and OpenAI started experimenting around with some of those techniques, and I saw GPT-2 for the first time, which now I
Mm-hmm.
look back at it and I think, how, GPT-2 is terrible. But when I saw GPT-2 for the first time, I went, oh my gosh, like this is going to fundamentally change the way the world
Right.
works. And I think that was probably the moment I really fell in love with this idea that you could take human effort
Mm-hmm.
and you could synthesize that, and so, or human value creation, and you could synthesize that. And so the first thing I did inside my company was I had a process where we do discovery for new clients that came on,
Mm-hmm.
and then we would basically create the next 6 months worth of work and plan and everything else, because if you know what you're doing in software development, it goes a lot faster, a lot smoother, everyone
Right.
gets the product they want. And we took that process, which used to take about a month, and we turned it into a 2-day process using ChatGPT 2.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was, I guess, our first real agentic system that we built. And we replaced an entire team of people that used to manually go put all this stuff together with a
Mm.
couple of developers, and then lots of humans in the loop back then, because the AI was very unreliable and really wouldn't do a very good job. And it's grown from there. And I would say for the last 2 years, my sole focus has been on agentic systems, agentic AI, digital labor, digital workforces, and how to actually create meaningful systems that can provide meaningful value in the marketplace, and free up people to do what people do best,
Right.
um,
Right.
and focus on the creative problem solving architecting side of things, which is what us humans seem to do well, and let the AI do the work.
Right.
Let's
Right.
imagine a better world. Let's give it to the AI will make it. um,
So here, I would like to intercept here, Jesse. I know you gave me a very good background about your journey, how you came about starting with the blockchain technology and then getting into agentic AI, and now trying to understand how AI can do better things for humans and how it can create the real value. I know this is where uh, so this is where I would like to bring this question back, saying maybe in the last few years the enterprise world or the enterprises have kind of gone full swing into AI. Before that,
Yeah.
it was more on the consumer software level, because in the enterprise level, in the enterprise world, you gotta be a bit more careful because there is complex level of AI that you need to focus on. You're not only considering your customers, but your customer's customer. So, in your view, how is AI shaping this? Like when you see this enterprise grade AI and consumer grade AI, and how businesses are facing. I know you've briefly talked about rapid innovation. Maybe you could also pour in
Tie
some
that
thoughts
in.
from rapid innovation standpoint as well.
I mean, I think we stand at the precipice of something really, really interesting.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So if you look at the big enterprise technology companies, Microsoft, Google, Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
Twitter, or X, I guess I should say. You look at all those big ones. I think right now there's two things happening. One is there's a lot of R&D happening in the public, right? Like in the
Right.
open. Even everything you look at OpenAI, you look at the stuff that Microsoft and Google are doing, like everyone's just playing.
Mm-hmm.
No one's really, no one's really coming up with the systems that create value per se. Not that they can't create value, but they're not
Mm-hmm.
designed to create value. Like if you look at OpenAI and ChatGPT, just as a for instance, there really isn't anything about what OpenAI is what OpenAI is doing currently today that creates any inherent value.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe it's a replacement for a search engine, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
like a repository of knowledge. Um, but it isn't until the smaller companies, Cursor and Klein and those guys get a hold of it, that they turn it into like an AI agent for coding,
Mm-hmm.
or Microsoft. I guess Microsoft did with Copilot. They tried. I mean, Google's been trying with some of the other stuff, but we're still in this playground area right now, right? Where
Right.
we're trying to figure out, okay, we have this generative AI. It's pretty good at doing a couple of things, but can it create value in the marketplace somewhere? And we're still trying to figure that out. So I think anything that I say is going to have to be attached to the caveat of I think people are just trying to figure this out on a
Mm-hmm.
practical level. How do we use AI? How do we not hurt the humans? And when I say that, I don't mean Skynet, like, end of the world, hurt the humans. I mean, like, how do we make sure that we don't have hundreds of thousands of people out of a job? They can't provide for their families. They lose their homes, things along those lines. How do we make this shift from human labor to synthetic labor, digital labor in a
True.
responsible way, where people's lives get better, not worse, where the right people make money, and and you don't just line the pockets of the most richest people in the world already. Like how do you make human life better? So we're still trying to figure that out. Um, One of the things that's really interesting, and I've talked to my friends about this for a long time. Everyone acts like AI is new,
Mm-hmm.
and it just isn't. Like,
Right.
I don't think people realized how, like, 15, 20 years ago, even,
Mm-hmm.
you were interacting with AI systems on a regular basis if you had a smartphone and you used
True.
Google. Or when you
Mm-hmm.
first got Netflix, you were interacting with AI systems. Or when you hopped on YouTube and watched videos, you were interacting with AI systems. Like, we've been interacting with AI systems for a very, very long time. And those AI systems did provide value, right? In the case of Google, like, it provided better information so that when you went and typed something really vague, it gave you something really specific that you were actually looking for. Um, and so the concept of AI providing value for human beings, that's not new. What is
Mm-hmm.
new though is that AI has the ability today to replace people. Like, I'll
Right.
just give you an anecdotal story from from Rapid Innovation. So we develop software, right? I mean, if you want to put it really crudely, we build stuff for people. And I had a guy reach out to me who had automated his production floor. He owned a manufacturing plant. He manufactured a bunch of different stuff nationally, and I think some internationally. And he had recently taken his entire production system and he had automated it, added robots, added automated shipping, et cetera, et cetera. And so all you had to do if you wanted to buy something from him is you go and say, "Hey, I want to buy this," and all the robots would make the thing that you wanted to buy, and it would then ship out. And I think there were 3 people involved that worked on the floor, making sure everything was working well. But what he didn't have was an automated sales system. He had 300 sales guys that did nothing but take orders all day. So people would send him an email, and they would take that email, interpret what it is that those people wanted, input it into the system, and then the system would then produce the product and ship it. And so in 3 weeks with one developer for a very, very nominal cost, we built a system that replaced all 300 of those salespeople overnight. One day they had a job and were useful. The next day they did not have a job and were not useful.
It's pretty scary too, right? Yeah.
That's the thing I think that people are really terrified about.
Right.
Like, what do you do with those 300 people? Like, that was 300 families, 300 rents, 300 mouths to feed, plus whoever's attached to them. And I think that is why the big enterprises right now are playing. I think that's why a lot of companies are playing, is because no one really knows what to do with the tiger they've just grabbed by the tail, right? Like, ooh, we've got it. Yeah, like, what do we do with it? Like, if we can't let it go because it'll hurt us, but we can't really do anything with it because it'll hurt us. And we're just trying to figure out what to do with it. And so kind of my mission at Rapid is to understand how to implement these systems in a responsible way. The truth is, I think people are going to get hurt. I think that overall people's lives will become better. I was thinking about back in the early 1900s, if you were an accountant, what you would do is you would hire 20 calculators, which were young men, right, who were good at math. That you'd give them a ream of papers with numbers on them, and you'd say, "I need you to calculate all these figures for me and get them to me by the end of the day so I can do my reporting and budgeting and all the things that I need to do."
Right.
And then at some point we invented a computer, which computers are really good at math. And if you think about it, all an accountant is someone who does math. So of course computers should replace accountants. Well, they didn't. And it doesn't make any sense, right? Because accountants just do math. That's all they do, is they add, subtract, divide, multiply. Like that's all they do.
Right.
And for some reason, we still have accountants. Now, what did happen is all the calculators, the people who were hired to do nothing but arithmetic all day, all those guys don't have jobs anymore. And the truth is, who wants a job doing that? Like, do you want a job sitting there just adding and subtracting figures all day? Like, nobody really wants that. What happened was all those calculators became accountants, which is also weird because there's no reason to have accountants, right? We now have computers. Like, all computers are better at math than people. Doesn't matter how good you are at math, a computer is better at it than a person is. But we still have people in the field of mathematics that do math for a living, and we still have accountants. Why is that? Well, then we create software, and we've got things like SAP and QuickBooks and all this great accounting software. Well, now for sure we don't need accountants. Like, there's no reason to have accountants. Well, we still have accountants. I have an accountant. You work with accountants. Like, why do we still have accountants? Well, because there's something in the job of accounting that is innately human, that humans need to be involved in, right? It's the creativity, the problem solving, the projection. It's the hope that someone might have towards meeting a goal, the different things, like the human collaboration part of it. And so what ends up happening is we eliminate a bunch of jobs that nobody wants to do. Those people do need to go find other jobs. And then we create a bunch of jobs that people hopefully want to do that makes the world a better place. The more accountants we have, the more businesses we can have, the better people are with their money, the more the economy grows, the more money people have, the more they spend. Like, it's a good thing to have accountants. We'll probably never get rid of them. Doesn't matter how good AI gets or how good computers get. We just won't get rid of accountants.
Right.
Developers, probably the same thing. Like, what is OpenAI's latest AI model was writing code at it placed 85th, I think, in the world for writing
Mm-hmm.
code. That means there
Mm-hmm.
are only 84 people on planet Earth that are better at writing code than the newest, than their newest model.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd think, gosh, we're gonna have like there will be no developers. It just won't happen. Well, go grab Klein or Cursor or
Mm-hmm.
Windsurf, an IDE that uses these things, and go write something. Go see if you can use it to create your own software. What you'll very, very quickly find is that although it's an amazing developer, it's not
Mm-hmm.
very good at architecting and building software. It just isn't.
True.
It requires someone who understands what that looks like. And so we'll probably have software developers forever, even though software, like for the most part, a software developer will never write code again in the future. Just like an accountant is very rarely going to go and actually add and subtract numbers. Like they don't do
Like
that
they,
anymore.
so they move towards architecting. That, and I think that's a very well.
Yeah.
I think you've put it in a very well way. Just like how accountants have progressed and the developers are progressing
Yep.
with the advent of these agents around. How do you see the balance between automation and human employment evolving? Like, I know you have given a very nice perspective going back into the 1900s, the industrial revolution, how it happened, and how the accountants have evolved, and now the developers are evolving. I know there is a lot of talk about AGI and ASI, but before even getting there, if we talk about agentic AI, which is now making news all around, and believe
Yes.
this 2025 is going to be predominantly around that, what kind of balance you foresee between automation and human employment kind of evolving?
So I want to use another anecdote because it's interesting. So I enjoy music. I've been a musician
Mhm.
most of my life. I enjoy music a lot. Um, when generative AI started getting a hold of music, I was ecstatic. It was amazing. In fact, when I first discovered Udio uh, and started making AI music, I stayed up all night. I stayed up for like 2 days straight, no sleep. I just made music. It was so much fun. I had a blast. And I've got an entire folder of AI music that I've made that is interesting, and I enjoyed making it. Um, One of the things that's really interesting though is that when I get off this podcast and I need to kind of decompress and reorganize my thoughts, I'm going to I'm probably going to put some music on because that's what I do. And 100% for sure, I'm not going to listen to AI music. I just won't because there's something off about it for lack of a better. And it's not that you could tell that something's wrong because it sounds the same.
Right.
But it's just there's something off about it. It's missing that human element. And and I'm very very deep into AI stuff, and we've built some really really complex agentic systems that seem to mimic and human stuff. Like if you go to our Instagram
Right.
and you look at the videos that we're producing there, you'll see me talking in these videos, telling stories about different technology and all this stuff. I don't make those videos. That's not me.
Right.
An agentic system that with about 38 AI agents that go out and find stories and create scripts and call different APIs to create the avatars and the voices and they edit the video and they piece it together and they post it to my Instagram. I'm not involved in that process at all whatsoever. And it's good. It's not bad. I think people will watch it if they want information. But the truth is, it doesn't replace. It doesn't replace. Matt Wolf going out and talking about AI stuff and being human and having human opinions. And so I think that's the first thing that people have to realize. And I don't know if AGI or ASI is going to change that, to be determined in my mind. But where we stand today, for sure, agentic systems are really good at accomplishing soulless tasks, right? They're good at getting things done. Like for instance, I needed to do an audit the other day of a log where there was a DDoS attack on a piece of software, and I just wanted to understand it, right? Because it's a lot of information. And normally maybe you'd write a little piece of software to go through and take a look at it, or you would who knows what you do. But what I did is I just uploaded it into a RAG system, started having a conversation with the logs, like, what's going on here? And had a conversation with it, right? It was really, really good at doing that work. And you could build an agentic system around doing that if you wanted it to be really thorough or comprehensive. I didn't, because I didn't need that. But I think that's where you're going to see the biggest effect from AI agents, or at least where I'm seeing the biggest effect from AI agents. It doesn't replace humans. I don't see that it can at this point. Whether that be creativity, it just doesn't quite have it, and you see that in music, you see it in art. Or on the other side of it, like the world's best artists make the world's best AI generated art. Why is that? It's very strange. If I go make art, as someone who knows nothing about art, and I go use Midjourney, I'll make a pretty picture, but it wouldn't win any awards. If I was a really, really good artist, even if I had never practiced or had no talent, but I had that human creativity, that ability to see things, to see color and to see depth and to really understand it, I could make beautiful AI art, and people would love it, right? Because I'm working with my AI counterpart to make something amazing. My guess is if I was a really, really good musician and I wasn't lazy about creating AI music, I'd make really good AI music. I don't put that much effort in. And I know that this is true with development because I have some of the world's very best developers that work for me, and they are far better than they ever were working with agentic AI systems to write people's code. I mean, it's a 50x improvement on what they can do, because you're augmenting somebody, you're turning them into cyborgs in a lot of ways as it comes to like creating value cyborgs, I guess. And so that's where I see most of my clients. They're not focusing on trying to replace people, nor do I think that we will. Maybe AGI or ASI will do that, possibly. I don't know. I still kind of lean towards no. But what I know the opportunity is today is, how do you take, when you know this, you've run teams of people, right? You've worked with people.
Mm-hmm.
There's that one guy that you work with that is the best guy you've ever worked with. He's the most reliable, the most creative, the hardest working. Like, you couldn't replace him if you tried. You know that you'd have to talk to 100,000 people to find another guy like him. You go and take someone like that and you augment them with AI, and all of a sudden it's like having 15 of them. That's been the dream of every single business owner that I've ever met in my entire life, is how do I either duplicate myself or duplicate the very best people on my team? Well, I think that we have the opportunity to do that today with digital labor and agentic AI, agentic systems. That's where the opportunity is. And it's amazing what people are doing. I mean, I think we have 75 digital labor AI projects that we're doing right now. And some of this stuff is just absolutely mind blowing, what people are doing inside their businesses to provide value in a more automated, more efficient, higher quality way to the world than they ever could have before. That's the beauty of this world that we live in my opinion.
Right. You very well put. I believe you talked about how you can add soul into the music or create emotion into the music. And then when you're trying to attribute it to the work as well, how you can mimic or augment a better worker or a better developer. And in the same way, I think many of these firms or many of these companies, they're trying to provide these additional AI tools so that others can be more productive. I think these are the first set of things that we are kind of seeing how it can help development much more faster and provide more productive results. But on the other side, we also see things, I think, are questions about responsible AI and ethical considerations about what kind of stuff you're building. I know now with so much of potential, so much of AI tools around, you can do things at a faster pace and get things done much more authentic, with more authenticity. But how do you see things going or things evolving when we talk more about ethical considerations or building responsible AI? Or what do you think it is needed? Or how do you want to put this across?
I mean, I've decided that at some point in the future I will be hated probably because I think that the world becomes a better place, and I think that people are happier when AI replaces them. I genuinely believe that that's true. But it is because I'm standing a long ways away from it, and I'm looking at the bigger picture in the future. Because what that view doesn't account for is the immediate pain, right? Of and the immediate ethics of dealing with stuff. So, for instance, if we go back to the story I told earlier about one developer, 3 weeks, 300 people's jobs gone overnight. That's a huge ethical question, right? And I think it's a lot of the reasons that larger enterprise companies, even some, let's say, mid-sized enterprise companies, why they're not doing anything. These are smart people that understand exactly what they can do. They know they can replace their employees. They know they could replace their customer service. They know that they can replace a large portion of their labor force. They don't because probably mostly because of public perception, probably, right? If they went and said, hey, I'm laying off 40% of my employees tomorrow because I've built an AI system that does all their jobs, like a lot of people would be super upset at them. And I do think you need to consider that. But I think it's not really any different than the Industrial Revolution. If we had decided not to make factories, if we had decided not to make production lines, if we had decided not to revolutionize ourselves in industry, would the world be a better place today? Like, that's the question you have to ask yourself. Was the pain of going through that process worth it? Yes, it just was.
Yes,
now, if we had to do it again, would we do it the exact same way we did it then? I would hope the answer is no. I would hope the answer is that maybe we'd take it a little bit slower. Maybe we would start taking some of the money that we're saving from doing this and take care of, like, helping to upskill all of these people who are losing their jobs. Reinvest it into a different kind of workforce. I think there's probably a lot of solutions. But I don't think that the ethical concerns, which is really, and maybe I have a controversial view on this, but I don't think the ethical concerns of should we replace a human labor force with a digital labor force. I don't think that because it's scary and because people will get hurt in the process, we shouldn't do it. I think what we should do is we should find the best way forward. And it could be as simple as some of, like, what I've done inside my company. I've told people, hey, listen, like, I need you to start doing this. I'm going to start replacing a bunch of you. Like, I'm going to replace you. And then I'm going to take the efficiency savings that I have as a company owner, and I'm going to reinvest that back into you if you're willing to learn. And I'm going to turn you into the kind of employee that is actually useful. And so, in the analogy of the accountants and the calculators, it would be like the accountant saying, listen, I bought a computer. It does replace all of you guys. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those savings and I'm going to buy 5 more computers, and we're going to create an accounting firm. And instead of having one accountant and 10 calculators, I'm going to say we have 11 accountants, and we're going to go out and we're going to work for a bunch of different businesses. And we're going to help a bunch of different people do something that they couldn't normally afford because it's too expensive, because the cost of doing accounting just came down. and the skilled accountants just went up because those two things were out of equilibrium. It cost too much to hire an accountant, so people did it themselves, and it took a lot of experience to become an accountant because you had to work your way up. Well, now I can take my calculators and I can turn them all into accountants. And we can start an accounting firm. We can help more businesses. The cost of accounting goes down. Everyone gets a better product service. More value is created. Like, it's that balance that needs to happen. And I think it can be done. Like, I'm doing it inside my company. I think that people can do it inside their companies. I do think we would probably benefit from having a new kind of consultancy around, I guess, the ethical implementation of AI inside enterprise or mid-sized companies, where you pull someone in who really understands and can create a real plan on how to go from where you are today to a place where you're now providing more value to the marketplace with the same employees that you had that are still willing and implementing AI, because it's not an impossible thing to juggle. It just isn't. And the ROI is there if you do it right, which I know because I've been working on this problem for 3 years, and it's working really well. I produce a better product. It doesn't cost nearly as much for me to do so, and the people I have working for me do significantly more of the kind of work they like and significantly less of the kind of work they don't. And that's because the computers are doing everything else. It's amazing.
True. I think the examples that you quoted, like from where we've been transitioning from a calculator world to an accountant world, from an accountant world to a calculator world to a computer world. And if you take that analogy, we are now kind of transitioning from a digitization of the software to agentification of the software, or agentification of the things that are happening, and how you could now leverage this agentification not only for that software or the digital jobs, but also how you can take it into the real world, how you can make it much more useful. Because I like you said, I believe that there is still 70 to 80% of the world out there who realistically have to adapt to the not only the digitization of what is happening, and then the agentification. So once that happens, obviously you can do much better things at a faster pace. So
and there's a bunch of people still trying to adapt to the digitization of the world. Like, there's probably 20% of all value creation companies on planet Earth today haven't even really come into the 21st century yet. Like, they're still using fax machines and paper.
True. So this is where, Jesse, I feel that while there are people who talk that, hey, are these going to take away the jobs? To some extent, what I say is no, it is the other way around. You can do this transformation much faster, right? So in that aspect, I know, how is rapid innovation, or what are rapid innovation AI solutions? How are you addressing the problems out there? Maybe do you want to share a bit about rapid AI and how you guys are rapid innovation?
Yeah, I mean, to be really, like, to just put it in the crudest way possible, rapid innovation is a software development company that is, like, every single software development company on planet Earth about 2 years ago just got a death sentence. They're just waiting to die. They're all bankrupt, every one of them. Doesn't matter how big you are, doesn't matter what you do. If you don't own a product and all you do is development as a service, you're a dead company. Now, it might take 10 years to die, it might take 15, I don't know, but you are a dead company. And the reason I know that is because I can hire the 85th best developer on planet Earth to come and write code for me, and it will cost me a couple $100 a month. And so you can't compete with that no matter how good you are. So you just lost on the competition scale. And that is the worst the technology will ever be. You can't compete with it. And it's only going to get better. And so what I have done with rapid innovation, as I saw this, right? Like, we're a dead company. Like we've just got a death sentence. We're bankrupt. We just don't know it yet. The world doesn't realize that we're useless. Is I've realized that the value that a software development, that an software engineer really has, is
Mhm.
they have the ability to understand the need of an entrepreneur, a business owner, an innovator, and then they have the ability to talk to computers. That's what developers have always been doing. It's just like an accountant. Accountants, they've always understood numbers, and they have the ability to talk to the business owner, and so they can help the business owner understand the numbers, right? And so they speak number language, and they talk to a guy like me who doesn't want to speak number language. Developers do the same thing. They know how to talk to an idea guy. They know how to talk to an entrepreneur, an innovator, a value creator, and then they can talk to a computer. That job is going to exist forever. Um, and so what rapid innovation does is rapid innovation takes that skill, um, has conversations with people who are actually interested in this agentic revolution, in the digital labor revolution, and we convert what their needs are for value creation, whether that be, in sales and accounting, marketing, doesn't matter, across the board. And we actually create digital labor solutions for people. And so if you come to
Mhm.
me and you say, I need X, like this is what I need. This is the bottleneck at my business, which everyone has one, or this is the thing that's really hard to do with people because no one wants to do this job because it's a nasty job. It's boring. It's monotonous. Everyone hates it. Um, I need you to come into my company, and I need you to build me an agentic system or a digital workforce that does this job for me reliably and like it's supposed to be done. And then we go in and we do that. And at
Beautiful.
its very core, that is rapid innovation, and that entails a lot of things. I mean, we build a lot of custom models for people to that can be then integrated into agentic systems. We build really complex, sophisticated RAG implementations, and there's a lot of complexity that kind of comes along in there. But at the end of the day, we take what is traditionally human labor and we convert it into digital labor,
Mhm.
and then we help those companies navigate that transition.
Beautiful, beautiful. So this takes me to the interesting question. I term it as the $1 million or the $1 billion question of Extra AI podcast. How do you differentiate yourself from the competition? I know this is there is obviously a lot of uh, competitors out there. Whether how you want to take it in a different way, but how does the rapid innovation, or how do you guys kind of differentiate yourself so that, uh, or or it can also be the other way around. What do you
No, no, no. I've got
suggest?
a good
Yeah,
answer to that. I've got
yeah,
a good
yeah.
answer to that question. So, if you look at like agentic AI builders, so
Mhm.
I'll throw out a couple of good ones. Like N8N is amazing. If you haven't used it for an agent builder, it's awesome. It's very, 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 very robust in what you can do. You can build some pretty amazing agentic systems using it. You've got things like make.com and they're doing
Right,
stuff.
right.
You've got things like Influence, and there's a bunch of them. There's a huge list of products out there that allow you to build agents. One of the things that I realized a gap in the market is that I've got a lot of friends I've been an entrepreneur forever, right? And I've worked with
Right,
business
right.
owners for a long time. I think I've helped build around or helped launch around 500 startups in my career in software development. And so a lot of those people have become my friends, and a lot of them run very, very successful large companies today. And almost all of them, in fact, I will probably say all of them, are working on trying to implement AI right now, agentic
Mhm,
AI,
mhm.
digital labor. They without fail, all of them tell me the same thing at a certain level in their business. They tell me that all of the out of the box solutions, the N8Ns, the make.coms, the Zapiers, the Salesforce stuff, all of them accomplish around 20% of what's needed.
Mhm.
Um, and then it falls short. Like it
Right.
almost crosses the useful finish line, and then it just it doesn't quite. Now, for smaller businesses or single, solopreneurs and things like that, those tools are
Right.
epic, and people should be using them. But I think when your company gets to a certain point and it operates in a certain way, and you have certain systems and certain ways of doing things that you've been doing for a long time, to go disrupt that would create a kind of chaos that would cause enough problems that it's not worth it. Which is why
Yeah.
big companies don't change; they stay the same forever. And so Rapid Innovation's value proposition, and really what makes us different than those other companies, is that we don't make you change your company to adapt agentic AI. We build agentic AI that works for you in your company just like an employee would. Um, and so we have, we have some really, really interesting architectures that we've adapted and that we use to build these systems very, very quickly, that basically just allow you to create these agentic systems within your processes. If you've got proprietary software that you're using, it works inside that proprietary software and, calls those APIs, it does everything that's supposed to do.
Mhm.
It works inside your organizational structure. And so, our systems often will treat the people that you have in your company as an API they can hit for information. And so,
Mhm.
if you've got your marketing director and it goes, oh, I need this information, it'll, hop on Slack and it'll hit the API marketing director and then wait for a response. And when it gets the response, it'll, take that response and normalize it and do what it needs to do with it. If it gets the wrong response, it'll hit the API again, and, to get more information. And so that's really the only difference between us and what other people are doing in the space, is that instead of trying to force you to change your company to work inside
Mhm.
my rigid structure as a product, we just build the agentic AI inside your company. And I do think that is the future, which is why I've bet
Sure.
on it.
Sure. Beautiful, beautiful. I really like the way you've explained how rapid innovation is innovating here and differentiating itself. I know we are getting close to an hour. Try to keep my podcast under the hour. So, is there something? I know there's a lot happening, but what kind of message that you would like to give to our listeners uh, from this discussion about? I know agentic AI has been very big, is going to become very big, because that is where you can tie the actual value of what you do with the automation and the AI tools that you have. What is that message that you would like to give to our listeners, and maybe uh, any uh, any other
I
references
always
there?
tell people the exact same thing. Is just, you got to start playing around with this stuff and really understand it, because there are so many people that I know that looked into AI in some way, shape, or form, figured they understood it, and then haven't touched it since. Like, there's no curiosity about it. And if you are an entrepreneur and you want to create value for the marketplace, or
Mhm.
if you are a business and you want to create value for the marketplace, this is the future of value creation and the leverage that you're going to have. And I personally believe that any company that does not adopt AI, not maybe not any company, the majority of companies that do not adopt AI will be out of business. They will go bankrupt in the next 10 years, because they will not be able to compete with the companies that do, simply on value creation and price. When your competitors are offering the same value for 100 times less than you,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
more value for 100 times less than you will go out of business, because there's no reason for people to, to ask you to create value for them. And so that's the message I give everybody, is like, at least start looking into this stuff and really play with the tools. Pay $20 a month and go use OpenAI so you can use the better models and really understand what they do. Like, just really dig into it and have an open mind, be curious, try to understand how these systems work so that you can figure out how they how they could help you in your business. And if you don't want to do that, there are a lot of people like me, like really people who are just very, very passionate about this. Call one of them. The
Mhm.
truth is, if you called me and got me talking about this stuff, I wouldn't even charge you. I would just start rambling, and you would probably get an amazing education on how you could use this in your business. And an
Mhm.
hour later, I'd hop off the phone and I wouldn't even know what happened, because my wife tells me I can't talk to her about it. She tells me to call my friends and talk to them about it, because she's sick of hearing it. So just call me up and say, hey, Jesse, talk to me about AI. I'll do it for an hour. I won't charge you a thing. My wife will thank you. She'll send you a nice note afterwards. But that's what I'd say to people is just keep an open mind, really be curious and dig into this stuff because it is going to be transformational.
Great piece of advice, Jesse. I think that's one of the reasons I started my podcast too, because my wife tells me the same. You go do your stuff, don't talk to me. But there are a lot of people who really want to understand, and you can. But it's great having this conversation with you, Jesse. If people want to reach out to you, how can they reach out? Any particular
I mean,
things?
the best thing to do is just go to Rapid Innovation. That is singular. I don't know. Everyone wants to say Rapid Innovations, but there's just one innovation, rapidinnovation.io. And there's a lot of different ways to get a hold of us, however you want to from there. Or you could hit me up on Twitter. I don't check Twitter very often, but it's just, if you look up Rapid Innovation or Jesse Anglen on Twitter, you'll find me. I guess it's not Twitter, X. Sorry, Elon. And yeah, would love to chat with anyone who's interested in this.
Thanks for your time, Jesse.
Hey, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me on. It was a fun conversation.
Jesse, thank you once again for joining us today. Your insights on agentic AI and the future of human-machine collaboration have been truly inspiring. And to all our listeners, thank you for being part of this conversation. We've got more exciting episodes coming up with innovators and leaders who are shaping the future of AI and technology. You can find us on any podcasting platform or catch us on YouTube. Just search for XTrawAI. Until next time, happy predicting the future with AI technologies, and stay XTraw.